A story came out recently. People started telling after the Petira of Rav Steinman about a young man. It's also a story from Bnei Brak. Family from Bnei Brak. The boy went off the derech, completely secular. And he moved in with his secular cousins. And he got to a point where he was engaged to a non-Jewish girl. He told his cousins, who were quite secular, but even for them that was too much to take. They said, go back to your father in Bnei Brak and tell him what you're doing. So the boy came home for Shabbos. He didn't make any pretenses about it. He was openly Mechal Shabbos. You can imagine the pain of the father who just stood by. He didn't try to intervene. He understood that it was too far gone for that, to take that mussar. And so the boy would stand out on the porch and smoke a cigarette, sit on the couch and play with his phone. But then something happened. Shabbos day, the father says, just off the cuff, he says to the son, I'm going to Rav Steinman's shiur. Maybe you would like to come with. Random shot in the dark. Maybe you'd like to come with. And this boy, who is completely away from Yiddishkeit, Mechal Shabbos, engaged to a non-Jewish girl, says to his father, sure, why not? So he comes to the shiur. After the shiur, the father brings the boy up to Rav Steinman and explains the boy's matzah. Rav Steinman asks him, how long have you been Mechal Shabbos? He says, about 2 years. Rav Steinman says, in those 2 years, did you ever have a heartwarming tshuva? Did you ever think maybe about repenting? He says, yeah, maybe a few times. How many times? 4 times. And each time, how long did it last? 10 minutes. So Rav Steinman says, so in the past 2 years, for 40 minutes, you were b'mokim shebalei tshuva eim dimafilo tzadikim gemorim einem yechelin lamed bei. You were standing in a place that I can't reach. This shook the boy to the core. He couldn't forget this. After that Shabbos, slowly but surely, he began to come back. After the fact, after he came back to a life of Yiddishkeit, his father asked him, he says, I always wondered, why in the world did you agree to come with me? I'm glad that you did, but why? Why did you agree to come to the shiur? You weren't frum b'chlal. Why were you coming? The boy says, I'll tell you why. When I was a little boy in Cheder, when I was in Kita Daled, we finished learning our Mishnah, and they brought us to the Gadol Ader for a farher. They brought us to Rav Steinman. He should farher us. And I understood that the point was that he should ask easy questions, that we should all be able to get it right. And he asked my first friend a question. He answered, he got it right. He asked my second friend a question. Obviously, you understand, for me, this is incredible anxiety because I was never good in school. Knowing that I'm going to be called on was always my greatest dread. And I'm sitting there with the Gadol Ader, and I know my question is coming up. And finally, inevitably, he calls on me, and he asks me a question about the Mishnah that we just finished learning. And I answer, and I get it wrong. Rav Steinman asks me another question, and I realize that it's supposed to be easier, even easier than the easy question he asked at first. And I answer it, and I get it wrong. He asks me a third question, an even easier question. It's the easiest question. I see my friends rolling their eyes. It's that easy. And I answer it, and I get it wrong. And it's the humiliation, it's the hurt, the embarrassment, the shame. And then I watch all my friends walk one by one out of the classroom, and Rav Steinman gives each one of them a candy for the faher. And I was the last one out of the room. He calls me back, and he says, in Torah, we judge by yagia, by effort. Everyone put forth the effort of answering one question, therefore they received each one candy. You put forth the yagia, the effort of answering 3 questions, therefore you get 3 candies. And Rav Steinman proceeded to give the boy 3 candies, which he placed in his hand.